Morning. It's almost afternoon. Are we all doing fine? Who didn't drink any? Who didn't get any coffee or any tea? I'll make sure you get one now. You didn't get any, Miguel. There's water for you right now. You can just have water. We'll deal with the coffee for you later. Other than that, from that intensive discussion, how are we all feeling? Are we energized for these beautiful people that are sitting with me? Look at them there. We've been looking at you. I was just saying, look at everybody. It's so. But other than that, can we do a little bit of a feeling so that we can see if we can feel kopano? This side, you're going to say kopano, and this side is going to say 2019. So when I do this, you guys are going to say kopano. If I do this, then everybody this side is going to say 2019, just to get the spirit and encourage our speakers here to feel home. Eh? Okay. I'm not feeling it. Remember yesterday when we were marching? I want that feeling. This room at the back there, you are all quiet. I want to feel it. Let's go. Kopano. Okay, let's make it. It must be a rhythm so that we can start this. I want to start talking here. Come, let's start. Thank you. Now we are feeling kopano now. We are now in a they call me Linda. It's very much a she. There were so many that were calling me here outside. But by GNC expression, I understand also. Other than that, I will be moderating this discussion. We're going to have a free conversation here with our panelists this morning. And we're going to be exploring the discussion around party politics and our movement and how involved we are and how much ownership we take from that process in our own liberation struggles. Yesterday, we started from one corner to remind us where we are coming from as Africans, but also the importance about how our countries were working together to ensure that liberation is reached in our countries. So other than that, I have four panelists with me here. I've got Dr. Jessie Kabwila. She is from Malawi, a member of parliament for Salima Northwest constituency from the United Transformation Front. She's the chairperson of the Parliament Women's Caucus and also the president of the AU MPs Against Child Marriage and lectures at the Council of College in Malawi. And then at the corner there, I've got Honorable, and this is where I declare the pronunciation. I'm Namibian. Thank you, Lesotho, people from Lesotho. Motsotwane.
Yeah, Musutwani.
Can I stick to Honorable, and then it's easier for me?
No, that's not my name.
Okay. That's nice. So, Honorable Motsotwane.
If you can call me Mosutu,
Mosutu?
it's easier for you to say Musutwani.
Okay, Mosutu. Yeah. Learning is caring. She's a member of parliament in Lesotho from the Movement for Economic Change and also a member of the Social Cluster Portfolio Committee in the Parliament of Lesotho. Please welcome Honorable Mosutu. And then on my right here is Miguel de Brito. He's from Mozambique. He was instrumental in the foundation of Lambda and also has worked closely with political parties and governments across the region through his involvement in election monitoring and, of course, good governance in the region. This is Miguel who will be joining us. Thank you. And then the last one, who is hosting us in their country, our DSG, Madam Jessie Duarte. She is the Deputy Secretary General of the African National Congress. She is the lead person in ANC on current affairs and initiates to mainstream LGBT issues across all party structures. So she has a very big responsibility in this country. Thank you. Before we get into our discussion, Somebody has to come close to me right now. I don't know where he is.
Yeah, right.
Oh, there he is. Yeah.
So today is a very special day for us because DSG comrade Jessie Duarte is actually celebrating her birthday today. And she chose to be with us on her birthday. We're very grateful, DSG. Thank you for coming. So I want to call on Steve Letzike to, on behalf of all of us.
Thank you.
Oh, so
You. Happy birthday, dear TSG. Happy birthday to you. Happy birthday to you. Happy birthday to you. Happy birthday, dear TSG. Happy birthday to you. Hip hip. Hip hip.
Thank you so much.
she blessed
Thank you, everyone. Thank you very, very much. I'm truly humbled.
It's very rare that we find people celebrating their birthdays in spaces if they could do other things with their families. So we are very blessed to have you in our space.
Thank you.
Thank you very much. So now we're going to kick off with our discussion. And I just wanted to put a very basic question on the table in terms of, in your countries where you're working and across your observations in Southern Africa, what is the status of involvement of LGBT movements within party politics in our countries? Honorable? Madam.
Thank you
What?
very much. I'm very humbled to represent my party leader today. He's the one who was supposed to be here, but he couldn't make it because he was in another occasion somewhere else. Therefore, I only knew last week, Thursday, that I was supposed to come here, and it was very late. I was way up in the mountains. Therefore, I'm not surprised if you could not tell all my history. Can you give me just a little chance to say something?
Please do.
Besides being a member of parliament, I'm from a very progressive party that was formed 3 months before elections, and we managed to get 6 seats.
Wow. That's
I'm also a member of AFRIPA, African Parliamentary, that fights so much for human rights. And Lesotho has just been represented for the first time in the lifetime of the country. I'm a nurse by profession. That is why I have a soft spot for the LGBTIs. Thank you so much. There's a saying that I like that says, all successful things are done from bottom up. It's only the grave that we dig from top down. That means whenever we want to kill something, we must start it from top. It's never going to happen. But if we want to build something, we always have to begin from the bottom. Our party is an opposition. When taking the stand on the issues of LGBTIs, we have to include all the people who have been marginalized for a long time. That is women, the youth, and you, the LGBTIs. We should have strategic plans as party politics that should include LGBTIs in our programs. These people have been discriminated for a long time. Even today, they are not free at all. And nobody knows who they are. Above all, nobody wants to know who they are. Because the first thing you talk about them, or they try to voice out, that they should be inclusive, there should be laws made for them, the first thing they will ask is how they make sex, which is very wrong. But the funny thing about that, when they go to elect, they never ask the fingers how they make sex. As a result, there's a great need for community awareness. From the home where they are born, when parents bear children, they don't know what they will be in future. They give names according to the structural pattern that they have. As a result, it's very difficult when they grow up to accept them, to say, voice out what they want to be. What I know as a nurse is that it's not your choice to be what you are. You were born like that, you were made like that by God. It's something one can never change. It's something one cannot understand unless he changes his or her own mindset. What we believe in my party is that LGBTIs are human beings like us. They have brains. They should be given chance to take role in major positions. We should see some of them being the members of parliament, see them being the directors, see them being whatever the other communities can be, and they should never be discriminated on how they are. The parties should make the laws that protect the LGBTI communities. The parliamentarian members need to be empowered with knowledge of who are the LGBTIs. Because to date, as we speak, they are there, but they cannot advocate for them. Some parties are even afraid to voice out for them because they're afraid of their Christianity. As we speak, the Constitution of Lesotho says almost zero about this group, which is very wrong because they are there, they have always been there. We were born later and our grandfathers and our grandparents have had all this. We have stories that we can share from the olden days that have happened that can show up that this community has always been there. On the 23rd to 26th of October 2017, shortly before 1 year, the 10th Parliament of Lesotho has been in power. We are privileged for the first time in the life of our country that the LGBTIs were given some chance to say something about who they are, what they want, and they made it clear for us to understand their situation. Majority of us could not accept them. I remember one member of the parliament saying in public, I can never advocate for these people, I don't like them. I took my time to counsel him to understand these are human beings. One day it will be your grandchild. One day it will be a member of your family. You have to accept them because we have no choice as far as life is concerned. When we had round table with them, he was in a position to accept them and he could advocate for them. And that was a blessing for us. Unfortunately, it's only the 3 groups within the parliament that can advocate for these people, which are the members of Social Cluster Portfolio Committee, HIV/AIDS Portfolio Committee, and SDGs. The rest, when we had to give the report to the parliament, some even moved out because they didn't want to hear what was being said about the LGBTIs. So it's high time that we do something. As a party, we have launched the policy on which is inclusive, and we are expecting the LGBTIs to go and contribute so that when the policy is complete, we know it's inclusive. Thank you.
Before I get the other speakers to just also give us a bit of background of yourself, but also engaging the question around how involved are we as the LGBT community. Quick question, Meh. I just wanted to find out, with that process of the development of that policy, are the LGBT people involved in that process of developing the framework?
They will.
They will?
Yeah.
Okay. We'll get back to that one. Dr. Jesse?
Yeah. I think I'm not going to be linear, because I think in conferences like this tends to be quite frankly boring to get, like this is how it is in Malawi and whatever. I'm just going to go straight to what I feel are the issues when it comes to party politics and LGBTI. And before I do that, let me just correct, I'm no longer representing Salima Northwest as of 2 months ago. We had elections. But I'm still working with Parliament. I'm a chair for the former MPs. And I think as somebody who has chaired the SADC Regional Women's Caucus and also chaired the caucus in Parliament, I do have authority to be able to speak on these issues. I come into this from an academic, strongly academic, activist, feminist activist background. So I've done research in these issues, and I also would say the regional look that I've been in has really helped me. Coming to party politics, I've had to change parties in a very short space of time. I was with Malay Congress Party, now I'm with United Transformation Party. Now, here's the key word. The situation where we are as regards LGBTI is, let's be very, very honest, there is a lot put on paper, very little being done. So I think what we need to understand is there is documentation. Yeah, some have made it to write that, you can even call yourself transformative, but just talk about LGBTI. That's the fastest way to lose a constituency or to lose election. And I, for one, as a person who's lived in it, I know it. So if we say, where are we? I think what we must understand is, in some political parties, we have at least moved to paying lip service and saying, we care about LGBTI. But as far as really caring about it, I would say I've not seen a convention in my country which actually says, we want to hear what the grassroots is saying about LGBTI. Conventions deal with who is going to stand, who's going to whatever, but nobody wants to talk about it. So until political capital is put on this in the political parties, I'll say political parties care. But from where I stand, they are saying it if that would get them money in order to run political parties. But as far as really caring, no. We are nowhere there. The other problem I have is, I think for me, political parties start from their structure. The structure of political parties sells patriarchy and works on patriarchy. Any issue that concerns LGBTI will be put on the women, now, which is a problem already. Now, my worry is, I don't care what liberation party you give me, women will be called wings. And I've never understood why I should be a wing of the main body. I don't get it. Because as long as you are a wing, you are going to keep on flapping whilst the main body is going. And you see, What that means to me is that issues concerning the so-called wings have a long way to even get to the main body, because they are looked at as the by the way, you know? Now, the problem with politics is if you are not on the table to decide issues, you are going to be the menu. Simple and straightforward. That's how it's going to be. So as far as I'm concerned, a lot of the issues that concern those of us who are here are commodities and objects for people to use where they are going. Bottom line, our political parties are boys' clubs. And when you call them out on it, you are left out. I, for one, know that I was told in a parliament, we are going to get this constituency because you believe in you believe in protecting LGBTI rights. We've been here for 3 days. I've not heard us talk about sex workers. How do they feel? How do they feel? But I'll tell you that wherever we are, patriarchy is something which people must remember. It mutates when you attack it. It mutates so bad that when you meet it, you might not even recognize this is patriarchy. So for me, political parties, unfortunately, need to be depatriarchalized. So fast, I don't even know how to spell them. Yeah, so I don't want to bore you because I'm an educator and I believe in holding my audience. But as far as I'm concerned, oh yes, I believe in that. I want to go away when you are still saying, I wish she had stood. I don't want to reach a point where you're like, when is she going to shut up? So I'm going to go on by saying, as far as where we are, a lot of the people think LGBTI is about sex. And this is where my problem is, because if somebody meets me, I don't think the minute you meet me, you're going to say, oh, Jesse, how do you have sex? What does it matter? My issue is we need to educate political parties to understand that this is about people who love differently. Simple. And they sometimes don't even have sex, or they don't even want to have sex, you know? So to me, when people say, can we legislate? What is your position of your party on how people should have sex? I always ask them, when are we legislating those who are not even having sex? Because everybody was given a private part. What about those who are not using them? I mean, if you're going to have a census about how someone is using their part, then let's talk about, are we all using them? Because honestly speaking, I think the business of government, which is where my sister here needs to understand that I'm very appreciative. I'm so proud of seeing her because we went to Lesotho together. And when I went to do the LGBTI training there, when I was going in, I think a good number were saying, you guys you can't even talk about this. By the time we're leaving, believe it or not, the Women's Caucus in Lesotho, I've got some friends here. We had so many who had appreciated. Why am I saying this is crucial? Honestly, people, unless this issue becomes an issue of politics, and how do we do it? One, can you people join politics?
Oh, yes.
There is too much
yes.
talk. You leave people who don't know you to decide your fate. But these people are making money from erasing you. That's why they are where they are. But then we sit here and say, oh, the politics must be better. And you, where will you be? You are seated there. You don't belong to any party. You are not doing anything. You are not influencing the agenda. So I'm saying, pretty simple. Political parties do what they need to do to get votes. And until you guys start telling them, I'm not ANC if ANC does not see me. And we increase those people who understand what transgender is, who understand what being queer is, and make it a political question, then we are going somewhere. But we've got too many people watching and thinking it will happen by itself. Change is not a peaceful process, I want to underline. If you don't fight for your rights, you will never get them. Nobody will talk for you. And honestly, people, nobody owes you. Let's just get that. Nobody owes you. So if you ask me, political parties, no, it's a process. And the political parties are going to give us as much as we push them to give us. So as a movement, my issue is, I want to outline, one, we are doing a very bad job of protecting our champions when they join politics. I know times when I was complaining to say, guys, I need help. I'm going to an election. I need funding. If I can bring a well to a place, tomorrow when I get there and I say, I want all the LGBTIQ community to meet me, there will be less heat than if I'm not developing the place. But what I've seen is most of us watch, look, and your champions are getting slaughtered in the arena because there are very few. So let's talk about how does the movement support and locate its people. The people who don't want LGBTI are supporting their devils. They are supporting these people to make sure that you're out of those spaces. So number one for me, support of those guys, even help them. Help yourselves to get into the political parties. Those who are already in them, support. Number two, can we please make sure that we are changing the curriculum? We need the universities to start, garbage in is garbage out. A lot of our universities are teaching criminal stuff. I mean, how would you feel if somebody said you are a rib that was taken from someone as if they'd run away from ribs? This is the nonsense that I would like changed. Okay, guys? So, because I, for one, I don't want to be grateful to every man whom I see. Thank you for giving me your rib. And honestly, and when I'm pregnant, people come to me and ask me, whose pregnancy? When I'm carrying it. What are you talking about? It's mine. All right? So, because of time, I mean, I could go on and on. I'm just saying, we need to change. You cannot fit an LGBTIQ plus sex workers and women in a shoe that is made for men. It will never happen, no matter what we do. We need to change the education system. We need to engage parliament and get in and be there. Make sure that we are carving our own space. And whoever has made it, let's protect them. And then the infighting needs to be understood, expected. Please do not get tired. When we get these moments of tension, then we know we are all thinking. So I just wanted to say I've been to conferences, but as far as what I've seen here, as a person who does research and is an activist, and I'm very proud of the community I found here, because it's a community full of thinkers. You are able to get up and say, nobody can come here and say, that community is not educated. People are talking, research, and it's not just anger that I'm hearing. So on that note, let me just say, political parties, honestly grab them by their ... Make sure that they work. Thank you.
Jesse, I cannot get enough of you. I met Jesse. We went to present to the SADC parliamentary caucus, and then we were, sensitizing all parliamentarians there. And she literally stood up to defend us because the attacks that came very directly, and then she was made the scapegoat at that moment, and then they left us aside. Then the comrades were against each other right there. To see her standing strong again, it shows the manifestation of her commitment to our movement. And I think we appreciate that and keep going. This is the spirit. So now I'm going to move over to the other Jesse. This is our DSG. So, Jesse, let's take it from that cue and see how we navigate the space of just unpacking this little, I don't believe in boxes anyway, but that whatever thing that needs to be unpacked in politics and LGBT. Yeah.
Well, let me just say that the community of activists I belong to believe that you don't make changes unless you interrupt the norm. Let's start with that. The interruption of the norm in our particular context requires us to accept that we're dealing with patriarchy at its best, well-oiled, very sophisticated, which allows you to enter its space through a carefully contracted quota system. 50-50 parity, there must be 50% men, 50% women. It's a management tool because of the high outcry of women in our country who said, nothing about us without us. There must be 50% women and men in every structure of the ANC. Is that working? And I'm starting with that point because I'd like to lead into another. Yes and no, because there's an enormous pushback from traditional leadership in our country, meaning the cultural traditional leadership, the people who influence the day-to-day living standards of people in their homes, the priests in our country, irrespective of which religion they belong to, have a 83% influence on the thinking of people in South Africa. 83% of people in this country are belonging to one or other religion. And their influences are negative towards every gender in our society. Every gender. And I'm saying that except the male traditional gender. That is the gender that they believe inherited the kingdoms of God, if I may. And I hope I'm not going to be understood to be anti-religion. I don't have a religion, so I cannot be anti any other religion. The concept, therefore, of mainstreaming has to be disruptive, interruptive, and intrusive. And in that regard, what we're working towards is to make sure that people join the ANC irrespective of what their sexual orientation is. And we've said to the ANC, look, you can't ask me you don't ask me whether I'm a male or female. I might not be either of those. And you cannot make that determination. You cannot wish to know what my sexual orientation is. Frankly, that's not your business. Your business must be that I'm interested in your values and your politics, if I am interested in your values and your politics. But, let me say this, where that comes undone is that we then have this gender parity 50-50. Then the argument back to us is, so how are you going to make sure that the ANC has an equilibrium between men and women? So the conversation right now is a difficult one. I don't want to pretend that it's not difficult. It is saying, look, the conversation we must have is a very pragmatic one, which says there's more than one gender in this world. And therefore, recognition in the Constitution is not enough. Recognition in the laws is not enough. Recognition in the implementation of the security clusters, understanding of the defense of people who become victims because of their gender is not enough. It has to be an integrated process that we take responsibility for and that we make sure that we, as you have said, my dear, Musutwane. It's a difficult name. Musutwane.
Yes, I told you it's difficult. Yes.
My name is also difficult,
Yeah.
but you have learnt it.
Mine is easy, it's Linda.
The question is, and I hope as you give feedback, you will not be too unhappy with me. What is it that we are doing as the community to come out of the space of looking at ourselves from a victim perspective and becoming leaders in our society, irrespective of our gender?
Oh, yes.
And the push we must do is that push, you see? Because in our country, we've appointed a woman lesbian as a minister. From day one, she was targeted. Until eventually, the only way they could get rid of her was to say she's after all corrupt, without any evidence to that effect. But well constructed, well planned an attack on her. And we were very proud of her, by the way. Even right now, her name is still muddied. She has to wait for herself to go to a commission of inquiry. In the Parliament of South Africa, the most vicious attacks on her came from male comrades who are so-called progressive. Attacked her the core of her being. Just that. So you're quite right when you say we don't defend those who are outrightly lesbian or gay or trans. We shy away. We're afraid of becoming targets ourselves. So instead of defending, we keep quiet. We don't defend because we don't want to be seen to defending a corrupt person who is not, there's no actual evidence. So we're going to rather be silent and allow that to happen. This is part of a global compact, I want to tell you, of right-wing politics taking hold, even here. In Africa, it's now clear we're moving in that direction. So even the liberation movements, while the politics is very progressive, it's I think, if I might quote your former president, it is indicating left and making a sharp right turn on every corner.
Yes.
So yes, we indicate left, but we do a sharp right turn on every corner to do what? To appease global capital and capital here. And patriarchy and capital are symbiotic twins. You can't separate the two. They belong together. And that is our reality right now. And that is, I don't want to go into, I don't want to bore you with the fact that yes, we have come a long way in many respects. But my own question, as I'm an activist, you may call me whatever you like, I don't mind. I call myself an activist. The activism of today has to be interruptive activism. You have to challenge the cozy corners that people have slid into, the comfort zones, the carefully contrived language. You know, it took us a while even to get some of our leaders, Comrade Steve, to say LGBTQI+, you see. On a lighter note, they would start and say LGBTQI and them, those people. Yeah,
Yes,
those people. Those people. There's not those people,
What
it's a
those
reality.
people?
This is a community of real people,
Human
real human beings who live in the society, experience every other thing that everyone experiences. Whose business is it about my sexual orientation except my own? How are we going to get past this point is my critical question to all of us. In the beginning of the current administration, I was invited to Parliament to make a presentation on where we are and where we ought to be going. And went through all the research that we all go through very meticulously and made the presentation. And at the end of the discussion, I felt not defeated, I felt gloomy, because the only people that accepted and understood my gender mainstreaming proposal were the women in the group, because they saw it from a woman's perspective, and yet it was a broader than that perspective. You see, to me, it should not be correct and right that you apply for a job as a director general and the form you fill in asks you what gender you are. And it says F and M. And I'm saying, no F and M, take away that thing and find another mechanism to deal with our obvious inequality problems that we face. We have inequality problems. I want to. We don't have many women who are directors general because the general opinion is that women are not so qualified. I don't know where that comes from, but that comes directly from patriarchy. And with due respect to people who are very religious, the doom and gloom of the Quran and the Bible and the Torah and whichever other religion talks about this construct of the male being the primary qualified human being to run the world. And the rest of us are incompetent simply because we are not male-gendered in a particular way, alpha male-gendered. That's the problem that we face. So unless we are prepared to be disruptive, and ingenious, not disingenuous, in our approach, and forcefully move away from the politeness that, that we come with. We are going to find that we're going to see more and more correct legal language, politically correct speeches, and very little ground up mobilization of a community to change itself. And the fear we're going to have is the backlash fear. As you said, the minute you speak up about gender inclusivity, you become targeted as one of those, you know, one of them, Linda.
And labeled also, yes.
And labeled.
Yeah, and then they would say that maybe she must be like
Yeah,
that.
so probably she is, yeah.
Yeah.
And I personally, I don't give a damn what you think I am. It's not your business. I don't even think you need to know what I am. It's not your business either, frankly speaking. What I believe is simple. If you're not prepared to take the long road, that is hard. Don't give us the academic speak that we all already know. We have ad nauseum research. We know, Musutu, what you've said about the fact that you're born like that. We know that. But still we are being dealt with in a particular way. So I'm throwing the question back and I'm saying, what is the community going to do other than talk about, yes, the violence against this community is atrocious. Talk about feelings of being left out, the emotional damage that is done to a person in their own families. And are we going to stop pandering to the global right-wing perspective of what a person is and what a governing society ought to be like and who must govern? I look forward to the day when a member of the LGBTQI community will be the president of this country. I look forward to that. And I see no reason why we don't strive in our community to make sure that the political thinking of people is to the left, as far to the left as possible, in my own humble view, and make sure that we begin to understand what our own, motto, Ikera, Ike, Ikare, what does that mean? I am because you are. You call it Ubuntu. But I cannot be unless you are. I cannot exist unless you also exist. And I cannot exist as an elitist person if I haven't understood that everyone else may be in a different space. And I need to have an equality perspective in my being and in my head. How am I going to get this right? And I'm going to say this very bluntly. Our friends in Europe are very willing to mobilize us in a particular way to also manage us, frankly. They are not really honest brokers here, to be frankly, and because in their own continent, the right-wing shift has happened despite their presence there. And the right-wing shift excludes the LGBTI community. Totally. You don't hear them talk that language. I've not heard one European minister, I listen very carefully, prime minister or president speak about this community. Don't. In Africa, I have to say very sadly, we've been right-wing for a long time. So despite our very enhanced academic research and knowledge, and despite the fact that liberation movements govern some parts of Africa, it's not without a right-wing perspective. I'm sorry, I'm saying that openly, and the global economic considerations outweigh by far considerations of the equality of ourselves amongst ourselves. Outweigh. Because we're not going to go against Anton Rupert's rudeness about the LGBTI community. We're not. We're going to be afraid that if we take on Anglo-American and we utter the unbelievable utterance of white monopoly capital, we're dead in the drain. We cannot do that here. We cannot say that our economy and our economic structure is lopsided. And the inclusion of the LGBTI community, even in the economy of South Africa, is a great big question mark. Big question, you know. Some who are thought to be gay men are marginalized in the boardrooms of South Africa. So I want to just say to you, I don't believe in the norm. And I don't believe in pandering to new norms as well. I believe in disrupting even your norm. I believe that if I haven't got the courage to disrupt your complacency, I have no right to sit here. Thank you very much.
Miguel.
Yes, thank you, Linda. I feel a little bit disadvantaged here because I'm the only non-politician here.
And so many bodies that you know.
I knew you were going to go there, but
Yeah,
that's
but
not where
it's
I'm going to
understandable.
go
We've
there.
seen that all the way from yesterday.
But I
so
also
it's
feel
fine.
a little bit on Mars, not on Earth, listening to three politicians saying what they have said, which is not the mainstream discourse of most politicians and most political parties in our region of SADC, unfortunately. And it's very unfortunate that whenever a politician speaks out, siding with our voices, if they don't have the weight of an ANC behind them, they are, with all due respect, with a smaller party, they get punished the way they are. I'm going to center my remarks on the both sides of the equation here. On the one hand, all our countries in SADC, with the exception of one, have embraced representative multi-party democracy, right? We believe in representative democracy, and we translate that system through a multi-party system. For me, part of the problem is that most of our political parties have embraced a very primitive, if I may say so, definition of democracy. They look at democracy as the power, the tyranny even, of a majority, be it what it may, be it the male majority or the majority of the people who vote for them. And they have an absolute disregard for anybody who does not agree with them. So minorities are not seen as groups that need to be accepted, respected, protected, having a seat at the table. So until and when we change our understanding of what democracy is, we basically, I think, read the first sentence of the Democracy for Dummies manual and left everything else off the table, basically. And so 51% of the people voted for us, that's it. The other 49 don't matter. And we forget that everybody sitting in this room are citizens of countries. You pay taxes. You are entitled to a seat at the table. But you are treated, or we are treated, as people who don't exist. But when time comes for paying taxes, nobody comes to me and says, you're a gay person, you don't need to pay taxes because we don't care about you. No, we want your money. And when election time comes, we want your vote, but we won't give you anything in return. And so until that changes on the side of political parties, the concept of democracy, an all-embracing democracy, the fact that we are all citizens, things are going to take a long time to change. That's one side of this equation. The other side of the equation is the fact that many of us, I don't want to say most, but many of us, because of the way we've been treated by authority, by political parties, by politicians. We have a very negative relationship to politics and politicians. We tend to not want to engage with politics and politicians and political parties. We rather have a confrontational, throwing stones at kind of attitude towards politicians. And it's understandable, because politicians have called us below pigs and dogs, etc., 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 sinners and all those things. Right? But as my fellow members of the panel have pointed out, we cannot get where we want to be if we don't engage. And engagement can be in two different ways. We need to sometimes swallow our pride
Oh, yes.
and sit at a table and engage and talk, right? I have my fellow countryman in front of me, Danilo. Be it in Maputo, be it in Bangui, be it in Geneva, whenever he sits with a Mozambican MP, as conservative as that person may be, he's going to have that conversation with that person. He doesn't care. It's the opportunity. And he has been trying to change minds one mind at a time, right? And so when the time came from our parliament to review and revise our penal code, it was not because we are shouting on the streets that Article 1771 of our penal code that said a natural whatever act should be punished, that those two articles were removed. They were removed because there was a work with MPs, with political parties, to say that these things don't make sense. These things were brought in by the Portuguese in 1880-something. We are an independent country. Why are we using a penal code that not even Portugal uses anymore? Okay. If we are just shouting on the streets, and with all due respect to politicians sitting at this, politicians don't react well to people shouting on the streets. You react better with intelligent engagement, with argument, with research. Okay? And so my appeal in a way is for our community to start engaging with politicians. It's going to be hard. It's going to be difficult. Sometimes you're going to feel like walking out of the room. But if we don't do that, we'll not do. And the second step is when we'll start, like Steve does, belonging to political parties. Start having those discussions as a member of the party. I bring something to the party, and I expect the party to do something for me. Okay? Because if I decide, no, I'm not part of your party, so what is the party going to feel about me? You know, I'm a lost voter anyway, so why bother? Okay? So our engagement also must be through belonging to political parties. You don't need necessarily to run for public office. You don't need to run to be an MP or president. You can, of course, and you must, and you may, but it doesn't need to be that way. But you need to engage even from inside, because unless you change from inside, things won't happen. I cannot guarantee that the South Africa of today that we say that in Africa is a beacon of the rights that are enshrined in the Constitution would have come to this point if probably Simon Colley was not in Robben Island and had those conversations with the ANC leadership that was there. Right? With all due respect to President Mandela, he probably evolved himself as a person in understanding these issues. And because there was somebody called Simon Colley at Robben Island, that conversation was able to take place. Okay. Otherwise, probably the leadership of the ANC that came out of Robben Island might have a different idea about issues around LGBTI issues. So, echoing a little bit of what was said on the panel, it's an appeal to our community. Engage with political parties. Engage with politics. Make yourself present at the table. And don't engage with stones, engage with arguments. Okay. Also, and now I'm talking a little bit of the political scientist and the analyst of Southern African politics. The times of the very strong predominant parties in our region is changing. Okay? Parties now need to fight for every single vote. They cannot afford to say, we don't need the vote of the 5% of the population that might be LGBTI. Because those 5% might mean the difference between winning and losing an election or a seat. So we need to make our vote count. And Dr. Jesse made that point, you know, our vote counts. And if we take our parents, our brothers and our sisters with us, those 5% become 10% of the vote. And the same way in the Western world, we talk about the pink pound or the pink dollar. We need to start talking about the pink vote. Yeah. Of course, we are not homogeneous politically. We are left-wing, we are right-wing, we believe in, neoliberal economists, we believe in communism or socialism. But we also believe that we have self-interest that need to be respected by the political parties. And until a political party says that I will do something for you when I'm sitting in parliament, I'm not going to give you my vote. And this, I think, it's a very important message. It's not an easy message, but it's a very important message that we put forward. So I'll stop by now and let the conversation continue. But political parties need to change, but we also as a community need to change the way we perceive political parties, political activity, and the way we engage with political parties. Thank you.
Thank you very much to our speakers. I'm going to change a little bit of the way we moderate in the system because there are activists sitting with me here who would rather want to have a dialogue. So I'm opening up the floor. Can I have 4 speakers for the first round? How many rows do we have? 2? 4. So, yeah. But where's the roaming mics? Okay, we're going to take those 2 there, and I have 1 more hand here. And I'm going to take the last 3 hands here. Very brief, because I'd like to have more conversation for people to engage the speakers and for the speakers to be able, because now we've heard the speakers who have experience in party politics. But my question to you also, as you're answering or asking your question or observation, is where are we as the LGBTI movement when it comes to party politics? And I think that was a very strong message that came out silently, but also a reflectional question for us. So shall we take the speaker there?
Okay, thank you very much. My name is Tsidiso Kwena. My 2 questions are directed to Comrade Jesse. I'm currently serving in the National Tax Team for Embrace Diversity Political Movement. I'm its co-founder. I'm a proud gay man. I'm a proud ANC volunteer. Comrade, I want to ask you these 2 questions. As a resolution of the NASREC 2017 of the 54th National Conference, it was resoluted that ANC is going to decriminalize sex work. I want to find out from you, how far is the process of decriminalizing sex work? The second question that I have to you, Comrade, I want to know of the role that the ANC is playing to ensure that South African representation in AU is advocating for LGBTI rights in Africa as a whole. Thank you.
Thank you to the panelists. My question is for Jessie Duarte. My name is Letabo Maidula. I'm an academic and I also work at Pan Africa ILGA. So my question is more, and it does affect the LGBTI community as well in South Africa. So South Africa is not supposed to be a rape-prone country if you look at the demographics of the representation of women in power. However, there was a time where South Africa was the rape capital of the world. More women were raped than countries that use rape as a form of civil warfare. And I want to actually just have a discussion about how you navigate that type of tension, because on paper, I believe that South Africa shouldn't be a case study for anything, not for LGBTI rights, not for women empowerment, because it is an illusion. So I wanted to ask that question, and how do you navigate now having this utopian constitution, having this country from the outside that looks like it's all about equality for everyone? And then my second question is addressing a little bit of the elephant in the room about the historical support of the ANC of abusers, right? And I am going to talk about what happened on Friday when we went to a gender-based violence march, where the Women's League still insists on supporting President Zuma over and over again. Secondly, how you rally behind President Zuma when in 2006 he said at a rally before he was elected president that a gay person could never stand in front of him, otherwise he would assault them. So that is something that I want to know what the stance is on that. Thank you.
Thank you. We're going to move into the middle here. There's one hand only in the middle, and then we're going to take the three. Hang on, we're going to finish this side, and we'll move this side. I still want people to answer the question, where are we as a movement? Because it's important that we balance the conversation for us to know what our next steps in strategy would be when it comes to being active in our own countries and the liberation struggles that we're doing.
Thank you very much. My name is Jean-Guy Kwimi. I'm from an organization called Third World Service. My question is also directed to Jessie Duarte. Since
I'm beginning to feel
some energy
focused on.
Exactly. So maybe since we have started this kopano, the question of asylum seeker and refugee, LGBTI is not coming strongly. But I just want to ask here if noise has been made enough for ANC as ruling party to consider the question of LGBTI refugees in their policies, because now we are talking about the white paper on international migration, where we are really concerned about certain issues like the processing center that will be built at the border to accommodate asylum seekers there. Is it going to be mindful of LGBTI refugees? Are there protection rights are not going to be violated there? And also, currently in the asylum process system, there are many potholes when it comes to dealing with the hearing of LGBTI refugees. Are you mindful of those questions? Sometimes some indecent questions will be asked to them. How are you making sex, for instance? So that was my point. Thank you very much.
Thank you. No, we are in front here.
Okay.
Yes, not at the back.
The question will go to Mema Musotwani. Honorable, as an opposition party, we feel possible to take over the governance. What is MEC aspiration for LGBTI community in Lesotho? That is the first question. You talked about the 0% of LGBTI in the constitution. We are from the process of reforms. What change did you bring in the constitution as the opposition party? The third question will be, you said you are doing the policy for the party and you want to include LGBTI community.
I will change it.
we have this celebrity LGBTI activists that will know will be the ones representing LGBTI community in Lesotho as a whole. Are you going to involve every LGBTI community member to be part of the policy, the party policy that you're going to do? And again, what power or process will we have after the policy has been drafted and enacted in terms of implementation? How will we hold you accountable? Because now you'll be writing it. In terms of implementation, it won't be there. The other thing will be the last 2 months we are in the ICPD meeting, and it was very unfortunate that the minister herself said we cannot implement any recommendations from UPR because of our beliefs and culture. The question will be, as the opposition party, did you write anything in the shadow report? Thank you.
Thank you. One more. We have one more hand here, and then we'll go to the back, and then we'll get the speakers to engage us.
Yeah.
And brief, please. So we can make sure we can have a second round again.
McDonald Sembereka again. Yesterday, when we sat in the region and LGBTI group, we were discussing whether religious leaders do know and appreciate the challenges that affect LGBTIQ+. And the same question I would like to raise. Do our politicians appreciate and understand issues that affect LGBTIQ+ community? Again, the question that may come to any of you is the question of honesty and politics, and what motivates politicians in their discourses. The other one is, the last one is, what would you advise for somebody who advantageously gets into the circles of power, the circles of influence? How would one navigate around those? Because, well, I happen to have an advantage that I sat with the president as an advisor to the president. And I know that sometimes it's not easy to tell presidents truth. How would we want to navigate that, even when they don't know where you sit in as far as your gender identity and expression or sexual orientation is concerned? Thank you.
Thank you. We're going to take a last question at the back, and we'll get back to the panel. Just one. The person that has the mic. We'll do a second round. Sorry.
My name is Memori Samantampov. I come from an organization named Voice of the Voiceless. My question will go to Mem from the start. I wanted to ask, I come from Zimbabwe, where we don't tell the government what to do, but they tell us what to do. One. So I was just asking, how can we then implement be part of the politics and say out what we want? Because for now, we don't exist. So for me to be part of those politics issues, I don't have a space there. So I can't even say out what I want. So how can the South African people, or maybe the SADC people who have got influence, we have power in other countries, can then come in and influence our politicians out there? Because for us as organizations, we have tried our best to implement spaces, but we can't. Just look at what Chamisa said in the past week. So how can I go then, let's say, for example, join MDC and be me and say, you know what, I'm a lesbian, but I would want to be part of the change in Zimbabwe? Because right now I don't exist. In Zimbabwe, I'm nobody. Because even coming here, I had to lie. I'm going to my brother. You see? So I don't know how can other politicians influence and try to come in and help us and influence the politicians in Zimbabwe, and maybe there can be a way out. I don't know.
Right. Okay, you can give him the mic, and yeah, that's the last speaker. We have to come back this end so that we can have a second round.
Thank you so much. I'm also from Zimbabwe. To our dear panelists, thank you for challenging us to also be active in politics. But we as the LGBTI also want to challenge you. In all your manifestos, especially those from the opposition parties, you place us under vulnerable groups. Why is it your manifestos do not explicitly state us as LGBTI? We also tired of your engagement with us mainly during, we have been knocking on their doors and they're very quiet. We also tired of being used as political tools. The moment you go to a gathering, you realize there are not enough people to address. All of a sudden, we are against the gays and to get all the support. Why do you do that? And also, thank you for being bold enough to come here. But how are you all managing with the stigma, the labeling, and the shame that is attached to supporting the LGBT rights? I know it's not an easy walk in the park, but I think this is an honest space. Can you also share with us your concerns, your fears, and the kind of support that we may give to one another? Thank you.
Before I have the speakers engage all those questions, my questions still remain to the House. Because right now we are challenging politicians here. And this is what we do. We are not telling them our level of engagement within the sphere of work. Can someone just answer that one question to demonstrate what is our status of involvement, so that the speakers can also pick up from that, because so that you're able to have that dialogue of connection. And I'm hoping from here we're able to pull a direction of a strategy that would also protect our champions here and protect ourselves as the main activists. Can someone please, do you have the microphone? Are you going to speak? Please stand up for me, please. Yes. Where are we?
Good morning, everyone. My name is Danilo da Silva, and I come from Mozambique. I'd like to make a comment on this, and to tell that, yes, some of us are trying to engage political parties through the corridors of power. But on the other hand, when you do that, or when we are seen doing that, we are kind of isolated, vilified, ostracized by our own comrades, and call it elitists or privileged or sellouts. So what I see is that we are not ready yet to understand the value of having people in the corridors of power and also people on the streets, because the agendas are the same. We all want the same thing. We all want the same social justice. But we have to understand, as my country fellow man said, the advantages of having those voices in those spaces and reaching those people. So, and another thing is that we really need to come up with a regional program or something that will help and even give knowledge to groups or people who want to engage with political parties, because it's not an easy task. It's not an easy thing to do. We need a lot of knowledge, but also to support those who want to run for office, because I'm telling you, it's time. We have to be around the table and talking about our issues there. It's time, it's now. Thank you.
Thank you. My final contribution here, Steve.
Thank you. Linda, I think maybe it's important to recognize the value and the history. I think Miguel touched on that, particularly for South Africa, because if it wasn't key people, including Simon, but also some of the comrades in the ANC, those who have also left, like Lekota and many others who spoke out around inequalities for all. It was very important that we know that. We had, the Bevditzis, the Pumim Tetras, who were in the forefront as well within the ANC and outside the ANC. So that narrative exists even now. And I think Danilo has touched a bit on it, where we have as activists who work in the civil society space, because of our political homes, we have found so much resistance from the community. And I think it's very important that we reflect on what Danilo has raised. But at the same time, we did not stop, because even the work that is done by LGBTI activists relies on who is ruling and whether we've got friends and allies within political parties who sits in parliament, who are the ones in portfolio committees who will advance a particular agenda, despite of political parties they come from. And it's more than one political parties. And we've seen that. Why we have so many pieces of legislation in South Africa, beyond just the constitution, why we have equal employment, why we have the right to adopt, why we have sex exchange, it's because of the very same leaders who sit in the political parties who are members of parliament. And it's very important when we say why political participation is very important. Now, what we've seen, and I want to reflect just in the last 1 or 2 years, because many of us who have been active, even within the political parties, right? It's not only that, because you need to be part of policy development. What goes into manifesto? Beyond violence, what goes into manifesto that speaks about socioeconomic livelihood of all? What goes into manifestos that speaks about what policies of trades, what policies of change of land, and so forth? You know, I mean, to some extent, even with Comrade Jesse, we were talking about the very same land expropriation. LGBTI person wants land as well. The very same housing, because we are facing homelessness. LGBTI person wants homes and housing. So we need to speak about the narrative that is important. We need to all be involved. Now, what we've seen here in South Africa, and I think Tiriso was speaking there, Pana is there, there are very few people who are part of Embrace Diversity, where it's collectively organizing in provinces, not only just going to Lutuli House, it's going into the provinces, going into the branches where people belong into, and you organize yourself from, because same as activism, you cannot organize outside your community. So similarly with politics, you also have to organize within your community and branches and also that route. So it's very important that leadership representation also take that shape. And for those who are not in political parties, it does not mean that you can't be part of political conversations, because you can't exclude yourself and remove yourself from communities, because it's very important. So I think it's very important to look at that narrative, but also to reflect ourselves what non-partisan means now versus what it meant 10 years ago or 20 years ago when we started organizing. And how do we advance the LGBTI issues? How do we advance the LGBTI representation? And I think many of our political parties, particularly for us where we belong, have created that space, and I wanted to just raise that issue. Thanks.
Thank you very much, Steve and Danilo. You're making me at ease to bring about a context. We only have about 15 minutes left, and I would really like to take another round of 3 questions. I know you've got 25,000 questions that I'm going to ask you. So if you can just be a little bit concise, and also, I'm sure you're extending the invitation to speak to you right after this also. I just want to make sure that you guys are engaged in the process. So brief and to the point, whoever feels they want to kick off, it's cool.
I should go first?
Yeah, let Jesse go first.
Okay. I had few questions, so it won't be a problem. To start with, I think, do our politicians understand? I think yes and no. Some don't, and this is where I'm advocating that we actually need modules to prepare the politicians in the region and continentally. Who are the LGBTI community? What does it mean? What is this? Because even for me, who has been at this for long, there are still issues I don't understand. I'm still asking questions today in terms of me understanding. Because I would like it to make it clear that as a heterosexual person, I always have to remind myself that I can't say, I know what it is to be gay. I know what it is to, because you are not that. So you can, and you should never speak for other people. So if it's a journey for me, what about somebody who has not even interacted? So I would say in some circles, no, they don't know. But in others, they do know. but they are intentionally making sure that they are deaf to this so that they continue the corruption they are doing. Because the truth of the matter, the ignorance that people talk about is very neatly linked to the power that they produce in political parties and the money they are making by keeping other people out of it. Because the truth of the matter, most of our political parties are looters, simple and straightforward. They are just there to loot government, and they are perfecting that skill. And I, for one, am yet to meet a party that can challenge me, that it has really gone in for service. Whether you talk about ANC or you talk about MCP or whoever, even UTM, a few of them, a good number of them, you understand that they've got this attitude of, if we just cross, we'll be rich. If we just get in, we'll be rich. Government is looked at as something where people get money. And if it's a place to get money, LGBTI is not something you're going to champion. Because you want to be popular. You want to stay there. So the populist thing. So I hope I've answered you. The other issue is about Zimbabwe. I'm actually surprised because I've worked a lot with the Zimbabwean community. I happen to have stayed there for 20 years. I know MPs who could listen to you. Contact Priscilla Misiairabu, she will talk to you. She's not going to throw you away. You can also contact Pepeta Africa that I'm working with. Maybe we can get together. Instead of me wasting time, we can talk and we see how you can be listened to. All right? The issue of manifestos, I just wanted to say, in a nutshell, we are not the enemy. I think those of us who are seated here are actually, some of us just to attend such a meeting, you already invite a lot of heat. They are busy checking on you, but we say, politics can have anything, but it will never take my soul. It will never take what I believe in, which is not cherry-picking human rights, but upholding all of them and for everybody. So if you say, where the manifestos were being done, manifestos are a product of power relations. And I think the people whom you are seeing here, even those from ANC or those from whatever party, they know where things have gone wrong. But what they are saying is the change is a process. And we are here to make sure that we demolish every of the pillars of patriarchy, even if it takes us 20 years to do it. So yeah, some have been hard. We've won some and we've lost some. I'll end by saying, unfortunately, people, change is not an event. We must understand that sometimes we might not get it, but that does not mean we've sold out. Those who are here have actually come to say, whether my job ends or they take my constituency or whatever. Oh, before I forget, I do want to answer Reverend Sembereka on terms of what you do when you are the advisor. I'm not saying it just because you are here, but colleagues, one of the things which the movement does not do well is to celebrate when one of us does good things. When Reverend Sembereka was actual advisor to the first woman president of the SADC region and the PP government, those of us in this field felt a lot of support. And I would like to thank you here for the work that you did. We reached a point of even having a moratorium, which helped people. So I think don't feel that you did nothing. Those of you who have risen to a point where presidents listen, I, for one, am very proud to associate with you because even when you went there, you did not forget the LGBTI community. And sometimes all you need to do is to continue speaking and speaking. And we are appreciative of the work you did. Thank you.
All right.
I'll follow because mine are few.
Okay.
Thank you for the questions. I must confess that in our country, to talk about legalization of abortion or to talk about LGBTIs is a taboo. But we are in a very lucky time because we are in the reform process where the constitution is going to be reformed and you must take part to be in the second plenary of the reforms. If you are not sure of the ways to take to make that, I'm here to be your advocate and I'll make sure that you are part in the second plenary so that when we reform our constitution, you should be included and the nation has to consider you in a different way that is considering you today. You also wanted to know what MEC is doing about the policy that has just launched. I think I mentioned earlier on that it's only after the 2017 elections that the country, the parliament, was made aware that LGBTI's community is there and you need to be considered and you need to be part of the nation. So like one said, please take part in politics. Please take part in the committees that are happening within the politics, because nobody will hear you if you are not in the decision-making positions. So please be part of the decision-making groups so that you are considered. Push us wherever you are. You know the social justice is always ready to help you whenever you want. You know the Ministry of Gender is there to help you. Use us. And if you use us, we'll be in a position to help you in a way that you want. Thank you.
Thank you.
So,
Thank you very much. I'll try my best. All I can offer. Let me go to the resolution at NASDAQ for the decriminalization of sex works, a process that is almost 20 years in the making, and I'd like to begin where it started. I was MEC for Gauteng, and we advocated the decriminalization of sex work. We advocated for the recrafting of the Criminal Procedures Act. We advocated for the notion that sex workers were automatically prosecuted with a police bail denied, all of those things. 2 years after that, I was out of a job. I just have to tell you that. I was accused of driving a car without a license, kicked out. So we started again, the activists within the ANC. We started again and we got this resolution passed. And where it is now, it is quite close to going for public discussion. You have to do that. You cannot simply have a resolution of the ANC. It gets written into a white paper. The white paper goes for public discussion in various parliaments. And we pray and hope that the consciousness level of our provincial legislatures in the NCOP and in the National Parliament, with the help of, and I must say, Steve, you've been very helpful, with the help of Comrade Steve and others, has risen a little bit so that we can now get to the point of a total decriminalization. The real thing that has to happen is the changing of the Criminal Procedures Act in terms of the term prostitution and what that does. We're a long way off, but we cannot give up. Then advocacy in the AU for the LGBTI community. Let me say, and I'm sure my comrades will agree with me, long way off. Mm-hmm. The constitutions of the countries of the African continent. Let me talk about Tanzania as an example. Prohibits sexual contact between people of the same sex. Prohibits it. Our perspective as South Africa is we will never accept an AU declaration or an AU resolution that undermines our constitution. That's our bottom line. So there will be a standoff until more work is done throughout Africa on the concept of the rights and responsibilities that the LGBTI community have in our constitutional life. That's how the AU works. The AU is not homogeneous. It is a collection of mainly male heads of state at summit level. At foreign ministers level, similarly, very few women foreign ministers or even members of the LGBT. I don't think there's any member of the LGBTI community that's at that level. So the best option we've decided we have is to consistently deny any kind of a negative resolution. That's our best hope at the moment. Gender-based violence, and let's go to the heart of the matter, because I think this is something that bothers me a great deal. I want to talk about Nduma Nana. Let me start there. A young activist who is accused of abusing a domestic worker in his home. He is convicted, actually. He immediately resigns his parliamentary position, and he comes to the ANC and says, now what are you going to do about me here? And our response to him was, you're going to go through a rehabilitative process. Got to correct your thinking, correct yourself, correct who you know and believe you are, and begin to work within the community that talks to against violence against anybody, and against, in particular, people of other genders. The community did not forgive the ANC for doing that, for actually talking to rehabilitating a person that is ready to be rehabilitated. In fact, you wanted the death penalty for this comrade. I have a difficulty with that. The ultimate punishment must always be there. Don't listen to the other side. The empathy mustn't be there. There must be no excuse. I believe there must be no excuse for a person who beats a person up. And I am an advocate, frankly speaking, for the things the president is saying of the ANC and the Republic at the moment. No bail, life sentence must be a life sentence. Don't forgive anybody. Let's move forward. But there's a small part of me that is worried about a society that is so judgmental that it cannot empathize with anybody. There is a small part of me. And I'm an activist and I worry about that. And I think that may be a conversation for another day. On the issue of Jacob Zuma, you know, he is a person who came a long way from 2006 when he made that statement. In the 2008 January the 8th statement, he actually could talk about the LGBTQI community, but you didn't forgive him for that either, because the persona you created together with the media in this country is an uneducated man from a village who should not rule a country and who raped who you thought he's a rapist. He's a rapist. That's your, yes, he's a rapist. Yes, you say that. Again, he goes to court, he defends himself, she defends herself. And the sad part of this was, for me as a woman, was that we allowed something so unbelievable to happen and defended it. I defended a president, a deputy president, or the president of the ANC. Why? The issue that became predominant in the public discourse was the wrong issue. The uneducated man, the idiot, he couldn't speak English, and so forth and so on. And I want to say with a great deal of hurt and respect to all of you, that I think one of the things we do when we fight battles that don't assist us. So instead of going for Kwesi's issue, we either sided with JZ or we sided with Kwesi, one or the other. We did not allow for a decent conversation to take place in this country. And yes, it was a painful thing. Excuse me, ma'am, you must also allow me to speak. Rape is a violent crime against anybody, male or female. Rape is a violent crime. And you know what has happened? And the sad thing that we all created was, we created a system that we had won before apartheid. And before many of you were where you are now. That said, you cannot ask me what I'm wearing. And that was his defense, unfortunately. And it was a shame. And it remains the saddest moment for me as a person in this country and for myself as an activist. I have to say that. And I say it here without fearing what you will do to me after this. It was a sad moment. And what I couldn't stand, and I'll say here as well, was the Stephen Grooteses, your champion, and people like that simply denying a person of any wrongdoing the right to simple justice. Kwezi was not given justice. She was also beaten up thoroughly by all of us. So don't think that we don't understand the issues at a personal level, like you understand them at a personal level. And don't think that they don't grate against your consciousness and against your being. But at the same time, I belong to a political party, and now I have to defend President Ramaphosa. And now I have to defend somebody whose ideology completely is different to mine, frankly speaking. But that's politics. That is politics. I can raise these issues internally in my party and fight for right-wing, for the right wing to be dealt with. I can, but the right wing is very powerful, and it will prevail. And the little leftists amongst us, we will soon be a thing of the past. We will be corrupt. We will have corrupt charges. We are on our way out. We know that. I'm not scared of that. And neither am I afraid of your anger towards me. I really have to say that. How do we navigate? I am not afraid of your anger, really. It's your anger. How do you navigate? You don't navigate. You stick to what you honestly believe in. And you understand that the Twitterati and the cafe class of people will go for you no matter what. You stay with your course and you believe in what you do. I believe in what I'm doing on gender mainstreaming, and I'm not going to back down. And I'm not going to sit here and listen to people say it is not the right thing to do. Unless and when the branch of the ANC acknowledges and accepts that a person who is from the LGBTI community has the same rights as any other person, I can't stop working at that. And that is not a politician's speech. I'm doing it on the ground. I'm there every day, talking to branches. I am not making a huge noise in the public, and I'm not going to march with a duke to the union buildings. I'm simply going to make sure that I work in the branches of the ANC where it matters so that we can change people's mindset. I want to say with respect, Nelson Mandela was not the champion of the LGBTI community. Was really not. He was a conservative patriarch. And he had to be taken a long way forward. Yes. And we did that. Yes, you know, he's idolized, and I idolize him, but he had to be taken a long way to understand the issues as we understand them. So I really don't think it's correct to say that after Nelson Mandela, there's no ANC leadership. It's wrong. I can't accept that, because it is like me saying after Samora Machel, there's nothing in Mozambique. Yes. I wouldn't say that. Then on the issue of the border reception, no, that is an idea that is coming from the multi-party discussions in Parliament. The policy of the ANC is very simple. There must be integration of people into our communities who have come through the borders and have been able to be regularized properly and correctly. There are two exceptions that we make very clearly. Asylum for LGBTI community people must be a priority, and for people who have albinism, because they get killed in other African countries. Here they must feel safe. And the LGBTI community from Zimbabwe, with respect, my brother from Zimbabwe, came a long time ago and they have settled in. They live here. But are they part and parcel of our community here? One would say yes and no. Because there's a silence now. I'm here, I'm okay, I'm not going to make waves. Final 30 seconds. Religious leaders do not understand you. religious leaders do not wish to understand you. And 90% of politicians will not go against what religious leaders do not want. So we have an uphill struggle, uphill. And that's one of the points of entry we have made, is a conversation through the South African Council of Churches on this matter and not looking back. So elections and going backwards and forward, yes, I did come to the community. I didn't think you voted for the ANC. It didn't bother me, frankly speaking. I thought I came there, had a conversation with you. That wasn't the primary objective of that conversation on that night in the City Hall of Johannesburg. It was to begin to have a consolidation of ourselves to work together. And I personally think we've done a lot of work, and we shouldn't undermine it. I hope we won't undermine it. I don't want to walk away from here in my 1 second left, feeling that everything we've done and worked together is now nullified. I hope not.
First, give yourself another round of applause. You sat through almost your lunch, but just give yourself another round of applause. You are fabulous people. So, Neville is looking at me. Our time is up already. You can see your programs, right? I wanted us to have a second round. But we're not going to do that. Yes, we're not going to do. The group at the back there is very hungry. There's the group here in the middle there. They're edgy. They've been very edgy here. Yes, Nandi, you're looking at the back. Your group there. Yes. But other than that, I think we're just going to give Miguel something to say, because the other three speakers really had a second round of saying something, and then we wrap it up. Then we can all go eat something. Is that okay, Neville? Miguel, do you have anything to contribute?
I'm just going to say, I mean, I didn't have any questions thrown at me, but I'm just going to say that, yeah, we have very few examples of LGBTI people or even activists who have gone all the way into what Danilo calls the corridors of powers and gave their contribution. But whatever few people we've seen, they have had an impact. And it shows that that is one of the ways of doing things. You referenced the fact that President Mandela was a conservative person. Samora Machel also was a very conservative man, right? But one of the reasons why Mozambique today is not Tanzania, the reasons why we don't have legislation that prohibits or criminalizes same-sex relationships, is because there were people around Samora Machel who were openly gay and who had this here. Yeah? Our very first vice-chancellor of our post-independence public university and secretary general of our very first parliament. The person who died with Samora Machel, Mbuzini, was his press secretary and his spokesperson, was an openly gay man. Okay? And that has an impact. And so we need to, now I'm going to be a little bit blunt because I'm getting out of this chair. We need to get out of our comfortable seats of activism and throwing stones and join the fight, okay? Where things are being done and where decisions are made and where change is effected. Yeah. This is a very comfortable situation to be. Just throw stones at Jessie here.
Thank you.
Be on her place. Thank you.
Doc, people are hungry.
I know, but just one word. I will not take
One word, don't,
one.
not a sentence, huh?
Not a sentence.
One word.
Yeah. I just wanted to say, when you are going to a war, you do not take one bullet, right? So, yes, throwing stones is not the solution. Neither is just joining politics. We are all going to fight at this from different angles. Yes. And whatever you are going to do, because I also have a problem with people thinking that those of us who march are confusing things. We are going to march and we shall not stop marching because these people do not listen when we just sit on these tables.
Jesse.
So I just want to say all of it, let's go and we'll get them there. That's all.
With that high spirit.
Oh, yes.
With that high spirit, comrades,
Oh, yeah.
it is important to reflect that today we are placed on the spot for us to really do internal reflection on our level of participation, involvement, and representation within party politics, and also extended conversations with our champions and embracing the spaces with them by journeying through and also understanding contexts of engagements. So on that note, enjoy your lunch. Thank you very much for my speakers here.